All right, are you guys ready to hear a super cool testimony? I love sharing about revelation and just things that I feel like God's saying and is doing, but I noticed I don't share a lot of testimonies, which can be super encouraging. So I wanted to do a cool video sharing a testimony that's hopefully encouraging for you guys, because I know it was super encouraging for me. I'm going to have my friend Rick share in just a minute, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit of backstory before I have him share. So my good friend Rick here, we met, he came into the tattoo shop a couple of times, and I just did a couple of small tattoos on him. But just like so many other people, God drew him into the shop, or like how God draws people into our lives. It was kind of at one of those times in his life that he really needed redirection back to faith in Jesus. And it was so cool as we continued to get together and talk, God just kind of brought us closer and closer together as friends, but God also brought restoration to some of the things that he was going through. So since then, it's so cool. I get to hear from Rick every once in a while. I'll see him at the store. He'll text me. I'll text him. But I hadn't talked to him in a few months. And a couple of weeks ago, I got a call from him, and he was really distraught. And so I called him back and I said, Rick, what's going on? And he shared with me, he said, hey man, you're one of the first people that I've reached out to. He said, my wife just got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and they gave her a month to live. And I thought, oh my gosh, Rick, I'm so sorry to hear that. And he asked if we could get together and talk. And he had some family that was coming in. A couple of his kids didn't even know about it yet. So he said, let's get together on this day, which was a couple of days later after I get some of the family stuff, together and organized. And I said, of course, man, I'll be praying for you. So a couple of days later, we got together, and in the process of praying, this is the part that I wanted to share with you guys. In the process of praying, I thought, God, this situation is so much bigger than me, and I don't want to dare speak out of my own understanding or my own experience. I can't begin to understand what this family is going through, but the only thing that I know is you are worthy to be trusted, God, that you are so much bigger than this situation, that you're faithful, that you work things together for good, and that you love this family. And I just recently did a video where I was talking about fear and how when we start coming into agreement with fear, we're actually making the enemy, we're making the cancer big, and we're making God small. And God gave me, I felt like it was the Holy Spirit gave me a really powerful word right around this same time. And I heard the Holy Spirit say, love doesn't give people what they want or tell people what they want to hear. He said, love gives people what they need and tells people what they need to hear. And I thought of all of the times where Jesus was always functioning from the spirit of love, but it wasn't necessarily what people wanted to hear, but it was what they needed to hear. And I thought, oh gosh, God, I've got nothing to give. And I know I can't speak those words of love or telling him what he needs to hear or giving him what he needs to hear in my own strength. So in a humble place, I'm completely dependent on what God's saying and what he's doing in this situation. So as I was praying, I felt like God gave me revelation of what he was doing in this situation. So anyways, Rick and I got together, and it was so cool because as we got together, he was saying he was more frightened than he's ever been in his life, which I can only imagine being in that situation. And I really felt like God was using me to kind of redirect him to faith in Jesus. And I was sharing with them, Rick, regardless of how gnarly the situation is, if we're praying from a place of fear, there's no power in those prayers. But as we lay down those fears, as we lay down our perspective, as we stop telling God what to do, and we surrender that situation to him, we enter into God's presence through faith. And from that place, God will say, hey, this is what I'm doing, or this is what I want to do. And when we're praying from that perspective, heaven nor earth can stop God's will from being done, because we're praying from a place of authority. We're praying from a place of our faith in God's love and who Jesus is and what he's accomplished on the cross. So we talked for about 2 hours, and it was mostly just redirecting back to faith in Jesus. And as much as I wanted to tell Rick, hey, this is what you should do, or this is what I feel, I had to completely surrender those things to where I was actually verbalizing what I felt like God was saying he was doing and he's going to do in this situation. So before Rick left, he asked if I could pray for him. And I said, absolutely, I would love to pray for you and pray for your family. And actually, he asked me to pray for Lisa, his wife. And I said, absolutely, I would love to pray with you and pray for your wife. And one of the things that I had shared with Rick was that few different testimonies in my life where God specifically said, instead of fighting for yourself or fighting over the person that you're concerned with, walk in faith so angels can be released, so God can be released to do what only he can do. And he's so much better at fighting for us than we are at fighting for ourselves. Does that make sense? Okay, you guys still following me? All right. So we prayed for Lisa, and I just got to give Rick a few different words of what I felt like God was saying he was doing in this situation, bringing unity to his family. And I saw his family tapping into this supernatural inheritance that was so much bigger than just this physical inheritance that a lot of the times we want to give our kids. And I saw God like kind of realigning the way Rick processed information to where, as the father of the household, he was being used to redirect his kids to the reality of the supernatural and God's love and who Jesus is and what he's done. And then we prayed for his wife. We prayed for healing. And in that place, just acknowledging what Jesus had done to the glory of God, we just acknowledged healing over her body. And so we prayed. Rick thanked me. I thanked him for being an awesome guy. And he left. Then a couple of days later, I was texting with Rick and I was just asking how he was doing, encouraging him to stand in faith. And he was saying that the help was really talkful because the help was really talkful. The talk was really helpful because it was redirecting him to pray from a place that wasn't fear. And he was acknowledging in that place there was really no mercy or no grace for his focus not to be on God, because as soon as his focus came off of God, it was instantly this horrifying fear of what happens if my wife dies. What am I going to do? What are my kids going to do? So just redirecting him back to that place of walking in faith, trusting God so he could experience a supernatural peace and even hope and joy amongst the gnarliest situations. And so I'm going to hand the microphone over to Rick and I'm going to have him share.
Hi, my name's Rick, and I want to share a story that has happened to me recently regarding my wife, Lisa Fisher. A little over 2.5 weeks ago, my wife was experiencing severe headaches, really, really bad neck ache, to a point that she'd never experienced anything like this. She was actually down for the count, which is impossible for her because she doesn't stop. And
Right.
And it was about 3 weeks ago on a Wednesday. By Friday, I had asked her if she would go in and get an MRI because I thought maybe she had some bleeding or something inside her head. The pain was so severe. She literally could barely get out of bed. So 2 weeks ago, Monday, my wife was called into her doctor's office after having her MRI done. And I actually didn't even go in for that appointment because I went in for the MRI appointment and they gave her a thumbs up and you're good to go. So my wife thought she was going to get some muscle relaxants or ibuprofen, something to that nature. So they asked my wife if I was in the waiting room, and she said, no, he's not. And they said, can you get him? And she said, no, he's 2 blocks away. I'm fine. And the doctor started weeping and looked at my wife, Lisa, and said, I have some extremely bad news for you. The results show that you have malignant melanoma, stage 4 cancer, metastasized to the head or brain, and was very sure of it, to the point that she didn't say stage 1, 2, or 3. She said the final stage is stage 4. So obviously my wife came home devastated, saying, I just can't believe I have to leave the kids. I can't believe I have to leave you. I've been married to Lisa 31 years in September, and I immediately was broken and devastated beyond any words or descriptions. We immediately got in touch with an oncologist who is from USC and has an office in Newport Beach, who's very well respected in modern medicine. Turns out he is also a very, very big Christian. Yeah. And I came in here and prayed. I went to my churches and prayed. When I came in here, Chris and I had 2 hours of prayer. And the next day, so this is now a week into it, and we had an upcoming appointment. Went into that morning on a Wednesday, we went into the oncologist, and I was hoping the doctor was going to say it was a mistake. Everything is fine. But that's not what happened. What happened was this oncologist, a separate doctor who doesn't even know this doctor, had pulled up all of her charts, had everything on a backboard, including her back information. He had pulled up everything she'd ever done in the last 15 years and said, I'm very sorry, but you do have stage 4 cancer. The good news is it has not penetrated the brain. The bad news is that it's stage 4. The only encouragement he gave us whatsoever is we don't want to jump to conclusions that it's melanoma, which is a very deadly disease. It could be myeloma, or he named some other types of cancers. So we set a path of discovery, and it was all kinds of different tests, from PET scans to CAT scans to blood to urine, scariest things that you would ever want to take. And after all the testing was done, we're now into it about a week and a half. We had a scheduled meeting on Friday. I had talked to this doctor several times on email, telling him, I hope God is working through you. I hope that you speak to God. And he said, in fact, I see all of my patients as God's children, and everything I do is working through God's hands. And that was a relief. In fact, he had got my email, my first email, while he was at church, and sent me an email back immediately. So that Friday, after having all the tests, we expected obviously the worst, and at best we were hoping for a prognosis that would keep her alive for a few years to fight this battle. We had other oncologists scheduled weeks out that we were going to get second and third opinions. So after going through the charts, which he had everything in the back, he started talking about the upper body, the lower body, and going through the whole thing. And he could find no cancer left in the body. Yeah. He could find nothing. And unfortunately, he told us very slowly, but he unveiled the pieces of the body methodically. And this guy's a methodical guy. Right. I don't believe that he would have said we had stage 4 cancer without evidence. Yeah. He walked through and said he can't explain it. He said the lesions were either caused from a cancer that was there or that is no longer there, that scarred the head, the skull, or it was something maybe she was born with, which he finds hard to believe. But regardless, he could not explain it. We have exchanged emails since and are like, this is a miracle. This is a miracle from God. There's no other explanation. There's no other way that I can explain it, that she can explain it, that the doctor can explain it, that the first doctor can explain it. We believe it was a gift for God, and we're discovering what that gift is for. I will never doubt God's power again, and neither will my family. We are so grateful for God's mercy and for his miracles. And again, Lisa has no cancer. I'd like to see her in 6 months just for a checkup. Right. And God bless.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. How awesome is that? So it was so cool. Rick called me right after he got the news and shared with me. He was still in shock, and I'm like, God, you were so good. And I knew God was saying, signs and wonders follow those that believe. And I knew that God had done a miracle to confirm his worthiness to be trusted, to confirm his love for this family and just what he accomplished on the cross. And as we continue to walk in faith, God truly will move mountains. And sometimes it can be physical, and sometimes it's just this spiritual block that God's removing, that we can experience a greater measure of the kingdom. But I wanted to share something really quick with you guys before we end this. It was cool. After I got the good news from Rick, I was just thanking God and saying, God, you were so good. But I was praying and I said, God, between me and you, I don't want to misrepresent you. I don't want to claim that you did something, even though I know you did a miracle and you're doing miracles in this family. I don't want to misrepresent you. Will you show me what you did from your perspective? I don't know if the doctors misdiagnosed her and they were wrong, or if you miraculously healed her. Either way, like I said, I know you did something miraculous, and I know you're setting up this family for success. And so a couple hours later, I was worshiping, and God gave me the coolest revelation. I felt like God said, the miracle that I did in this family wasn't the healing over Lisa over stage 4 cancer. He said the true miracle in this situation was this family, was this man, was this wife choosing to trust me in the worst storm of their life so the kingdom of heaven could invade. And I thought, man, that is so powerful. From God's perspective, the miracle wasn't her getting healed of stage 4 cancer. The miracle was their faith. The miracle was them sacrificing the fear, sacrificing the emotions, sacrificing the thoughts, and choosing to put their faith in Jesus. So what Jesus accomplished on the cross could manifest in their lives. And God reminded me of this really cool picture, this revelation he gave me through the word about Peter walking on water. And I heard God say, one day I was reading that, I heard God say the miracle wasn't Peter walking on water. He said the miracle was Peter keeping his eyes on Jesus in the middle of a storm. And signs and wonders truly will follow those that believe. And just an encouragement to you guys, as it's been such an encouragement to me every time I see God move in a miraculous way, that he's so worthy to be trusted. And as we're looking at things from his perspective, and as we're praying from that place of authority or believing from that place of authority, signs and wonders truly will manifest in the physical. So I hope that encourages you guys, and I hope it blesses you. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.